What is today? Today
Jen,
is,
do we want to wait for a minute for Jody? I can. You sure?
Well, good, I'm glad you did, since you had
Okay.
to do that.
I get my days mixed up now.
Yeah, I know.
And,
lessons the kids, my granddaughters.
in fact, I'm taking some, instead of taking a vacation this year, just taking some days off. Staycation.
They've
gone through that.
Mental health break.
Yeah, well, travel is expensive,
Yeah.
and by the time you get back, you feel like you need a vacation.
Wow, high ambitions there.
Nobody pays you.
No, that's true.
I don't ski, I snowshoe. It's a lot harder to fall down. So it's 5:30.
We might as well get going. She'll be
That's
here
fine.
sometime.
So it's 5:30. We're going to get started. We'll call to order the Wednesday, January 18th, 2017 meeting of the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners. We could stand. We had one of our former commissioners pass away a couple of weeks ago, Margaret Underwood. And Commissioner Wheelock worked closely with Ms. Underwood, so he has a few words to say. And then we'll have a moment of silence.
Margaret Underwood was a Grand Traverse County Commissioner for 20 years. She served as Deputy Treasurer in East Bay Township for a number of years. I knew Margaret for years before I came to the County Board, which was a long time ago, as you all know. She sat on my Eagle Scout Board of Review in 1972. I went backpacking in New Mexico with her two sons to Philmont Scout Ranch in 1974. So my history with Margaret goes back a while. She will truly be missed. She served as a director at the National Cherry Festival for 25 years. She truly had this community in her heart, and I hope the community has her in our hearts today. Thank you. A moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Bonnie, would you call the roll, please?
Klaus?
Here.
Gorfulet?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Lathrop?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Crawford?
Here. So we have approval of the minutes of December 21st, 2016, the last regular board meeting of last year. Are there any changes or additions or anything? Those will stand approved. The minutes of January 4th, 2017, the organizational meeting. Does anybody have any changes to that?
One
Yes.
slight thing.
Yes, sir.
On page 4, I was talking about regular meetings and study sessions as to different topics, and for the Human Resource Department and the pension obligation. The Human Resource one I was expecting to do at a regular meeting, while as the pension obligation one I thought deserved a study session.
Is that not reflected in the minutes that way?
No, it just says study session dates. And of course, then there's the third option that we also discuss it at our strategic planning meeting.
Okay. Are the minutes okay, though, the way that they are stated?
Yeah, it's close enough, but
Good, oh,
I just
okay.
wanted to
Thank you.
clarify.
Okay, thank you. Okay, those minutes will stand approved. We come to first public comment. Bonnie, would you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Thank you. Anybody have public comment at this time? Step forward. No? Nobody's rushing to the podium. You'll have other chances later if you should so choose. On to approval of the agenda. Does any board member have anything to add or change on the agenda at all? Any staff? No?
Madam Chair, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Johnson, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The agenda stands approved. Consent calendar. Bonnie again.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Conservation District Monthly Report. Number 2, Road Commission Monthly Report. Number 3, County Staff Report for January 2017. B, approvals. Number 1, Resource Recovery 2017 hauler licenses. Number 2, Sheriff's Office Fleet Oil Change Contract. Number 3, Sheriff's Office Fleet Maintenance Contract. Number 4, 2016-2017 Child Care Fund Budget Amendment. Number 5, Commission on Aging Vehicle Purchase. Number 6, December 2016 Claims Approval.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have anything that they would like removed from the consent calendar? Cheryl?
Under approvals, number 1.
Okay. Anyone else? Sonny?
I would like to remove the solid waste hauler licenses just for comment.
That's the
Cheryl
same one
just
I
did.
Same one she just
Okay,
did.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We can go over it twice.
I'm looking at the agenda and the
It's okay. Any staff?
list.
Anyone from the public like anything removed from the consent calendar for discussion? Okay. Anyone have a motion?
I motion that we accept that.
Okay.
Support.
Second, okay. Moved by Commissioner Mayer, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So we move on to, we have no special orders of business. Items removed from the consent calendar. B1, Cheryl and/or Sonny.
Well, my comment was that I was curious about why we were in the business of approving hauler licenses. So I asked to be provided with a copy of the language that accompanies that license, and it raised a number of concerns for me. Specifically, I'm concerned about potential liability for the county because we are licensing these entities to gather potentially hazardous materials and then dispose of them. And it appears to me from what I read that we might be exposing ourselves to some liability in exchange for, I assume the fee for the license is basically why we're doing it, is for that. And so I'm concerned that the liability might be greater than the return. It looks like there's quite a bit of, there used to be an entity called the Resource Recovery Group that I think helped with this process, and it's my understanding that since last year or over a year ago, they don't exist anymore. And so it looked to me like a liability waiting to happen, and so I asked if Mr. Forsyth could maybe take a look at that and help me understand that, and he did say that he had some thoughts that he could share on that as well.
Okay. Sonny?
Well, just a couple comments. Number one, you're right, the Resource Recovery Council used to oversee these licensings. They also license and authorize all solid waste sites where waste can be disposed of within the county. When Grand Traverse County eliminated the Resource Recovery Council, eliminated the department, and contracted for the oversight of those services, this is a piece that was left in the solid waste plan. Our solid waste plan, as it currently is in place, requires the licensing of both haulers and disposal facilities that can collect or accept waste from Grand Traverse County. It's kind of a piece that got, it's there, it's in the plan. We no longer have staff or a Resource Recovery Council oversight of that. That being said, I proposed to get rid of the licensing of haulers years ago when we still had that plan in place, because the idea that we truly believe that these 7 yard waste applicators are the only people hauling yard waste in Grand Traverse County. Why are these 7 required to pay and the rest of them aren't? The same thing with special waste applications, the recycling people, builder's waste, profile, there's a list of, I don't know, 6 of them. At some point, we license these people for a $25 license fee, but we have no policing powers over them. Why are we bothering? The clerical cost of licensing them for $25 costs more than the process of dealing with it. This duty responsibility, I think, fell back on Bonnie as part of this. I don't know that the clerk's office has the desire or the expertise to try to evaluate whether these are qualified waste haulers that are applying for applications, and I'm sure they don't have any interest or expertise to identify whether or not these are all of the waste haulers that are collecting and transporting waste in Grand Traverse County. So, I personally, I'd just as soon, going into 2017, send these people back send them back their checks, and we no longer in the business of licensing. But that would be a question for Chris, whether or not we can do that.
My overall concerns with solid waste management is compliance with Part 115 of the Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act, otherwise known as NREPA. Part 115 of NREPA says if an entity like the county is going to get involved in waste management, it has to have a solid waste management plan, and it has to follow that plan. And there are certain procedures laid out in Part 115 of NREPA. So if you were to abolish the requirement to have licensed haulers, or if you were to get rid of parts or all of Ordinance 17, or change how we're doing resource recovery, the concern I have is now you're not complying with your solid waste management plan, and now ultimately you're not complying with Part 115 of NREPA, and the liability would come in with Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, and their oversight. So those are the concerns that I have anytime we're talking about resource recovery and changes that we want to make, and that is we have to make sure that we're always complying with Part 115 of NREPA.
Well, we can be sure that we're not complying with Ordinance 17 right now.
Well, my question is, by simply granting a license, are we in compliance?
By granting a license, we are compliant, because our solid waste management plan says we're going to have Ordinance 17, and Ordinance 17 is going to contain certain things like licensing haulers.
Right, but my reading of that also requires that the haulers have to provide documentation on a quarterly basis,
Yes.
and there's a whole bunch of things that they have to do.
Correct.
Who is overseeing that function to make sure that they are complying with what we are licensing them to
It's
do?
going to Bonnie.
Miss Bonnie is doing that.
When we took it over, we thought we were just going to receipt in the money and issue the licenses. More questions arose as time went by. I had sent out letters, got almost everybody to send money, collected a ton of money when they didn't know where to send it or what was happening with resource recovery. We've been kind of on them to do the reports. Do I know anything about resource recovery or solid waste? No. We have IRIS, that company called Iris that is supposed to be handling oversight of this department. I don't know how to enforce anything, I just try.
Okay. So I go back to my original question. When we grant the license, and maybe I'm simplifying this a little too much, but when we grant the license, I believe that we are saying that we are going to stand behind these people that we are giving a license and say that what they're doing is going to be in compliance to the extent that we can control that through the granting or denial of a license. And if they don't, are we not liable?
Well, I guess the question I have is if they're not, and then what happens?
Yeah,
Is your
if they
question-
dump something in the wrong place, or they have a toxic thing that they
Okay.
put somewhere that they shouldn't. Or-
So I will say from if a lawsuit is filed and we are sued, and the theory is by granting the license, we are somehow responsible for whatever harm was caused, I'm highly confident that that case could not proceed against the county because we were entitled to governmental immunity in that circumstance. Yes, is there a risk of liability there? But again, I think governmental immunity would protect us.
Okay, so if you don't want to hang your hat on governmental immunity because maybe it gets dumped in your neighbor's yard or it gets dumped in your grandmother's yard, I don't want to hide behind governmental immunity.
I think the bigger concern, like I said, is are we complying with NAREPA? And if we're not, is there liability in other ways through some type of audit, action, fine being leveled by DEQ?
And are we?
Currently, are we complying
Yeah.
with Part 115? Because this board, a year and a half ago, took steps to abolish the Resource Recovery Department without amending the Solid Waste Management Plan. We are not.
Thanks, you've answered my question.
Well, and rewriting ordinance 17 is a very complicated process. I've done it twice, and it involves a 17-member citizens committee. It involves redrafting the ordinance, and then once the ordinance is done, there's public hearings for it. The public has opportunity to weigh in, and then it has to be signed off on by all of the local entities. That would be all of the townships in the city and Grand Traverse County. The last time we did this, took us about a year, a little less, and we were, at that time, the fastest it had ever been passed in anywhere in the state of Michigan. It took us 36 days to get through the process, as far as the getting it all signed off on all of the entities. But it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. You know, and the problem is, you know, like Chris said, when we voted to abolish the Resource Recovery Council and eliminate that department, we immediately became in violation of our own ordinance 17.
So what is your recommendation going forward?
So my recommendation going forward, there should be steps taken to remedy the violation. If that involves forming a 17-member committee, going through that process, well, that's the process outlined in Part 115, and we should comply with Part 115, and ultimately follow the recommendations of that committee, amend the solid waste management plan, and in that process, figure out what we're going to do with Ordinance 17, resource recovery, and haulers licenses.
I would support that.
Yeah, it seems like that was left behind and needs to be cleaned up and taken care of. Yeah, kind of, yes, I think Tom was first.
Okay.
We'll go to Dan. Thank you.
So some of this waste could be hazardous waste, some of it could be liquid hazardous waste, like in a tanker truck. Do we know if any of these haulers haul liquid waste? Or?
What kind of waste is this? Any clue, Bonnie?
No, none of those.
We had more
those
questions
people
than
are
we had
licensed under
answers
different-
when we took over
different
just collecting that money, yeah. I don't know.
Well, if we do meet on this at another time and address that, that would be one of my concerns, is what kind of hazardous waste, liquid hazardous waste, what might be injected into injection wells in the county. There's a few injection wells that take agricultural waste, and they also take waste from fracking as well. So I'd be interested in that, but that doesn't sound like this,
We-
that's part of what we're talking about right
We should
now.
note that ordinance 17 deals with solid waste, as in household trash type waste, and brush and leaves and those type of things. Those type of hazardous wastes that you're talking about are licensed by the state totally separately.
Construction materials though, right, Sonny?
I'm sorry?
Construction materials as well. I thought I saw construction materials as part of the...
Construction materials are
Part of
Class
this.
C waste.
But it's in a special, it's in a
But it's-
facility
it's in
that's built to handle those too.
Right, it
It's
has
not
to
like
go,
they just dig
it
a
has
hole
to
and throw
go
it
to
all
a
in.
designated
Yes,
facility.
It's gotta be, with
According to
asbestos
the
and everything
ordinance.
else, there's certain requirements to have a facility of that nature that they'll take it, so.
Okay.
Well-
Dan, I think Dan has a comment. Thank you.
Sonia, I just want to ask you, like, I'm not being contrary, I just want to understand. Are you in agreement that what we did in terms of stopping resource recovery, you think that was a good decision?
I think it could have been a good decision. I think the way we did it without setting the other pieces in place prior to doing it was a bad decision, because we absolutely immediately made ourselves in violation of our own ordinance when we did it.
Okay. Now, can we fix this without adding that back on?
Yes.
Can we?
I think so.
Okay,
Cool, that's
Right?
Yeah,
what
we
I'd
have
like to see.
we have to fix ordinance 17.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
But then my question goes, why is this the first time we're hearing about this? If you knew it at the time, I don't remember you saying anything about it at the time.
Pretty sure that I told you we were creating
I don't
violation of
remember.
our own
I don't,
ordinance.
I don't recall that exact meeting either, but
So,
it's
Well,
to our attention now.
Isn't it timely that it came up?
It doesn't
Now
matter.
We can
We-
resolve it.
It's on our radar screen now, and so, Tom.
Just building on Commissioner Wheelock's, haven't checked it, but I think the majority is yard waste and landscapers is the majority of what goes in there, from my understanding. There may be a few other things in addition, but I think that's the majority of it.
Okay, so are we agreed that we should probably set those wheels in motion to
To
get
look at ordinance
this
17.
cleaned up and fixed up? Yes, okay. So, Chris, can you start that for us?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
It's
So-
17.
We still need to accept the resource recovery hauler licenses. Do we have a motion for that, or do we not want to do that? It's the pleasure
Madam
of the board.
Chairman, I would move in that the current ordinance 17 that's in place requires licensing of haulers and recipients of solid waste from Grand Traverse County, that we approve the haulers licenses as developed.
Okay, is there a second?
Support.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
all right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's done. We have departmental items. We are going to talk about our board rules of order. Mr. Forsyth has gotten those changes that we asked for. I think everybody hopefully had a chance to look them over. Is there any discussion on what we were given? Bob?
Yeah, I guess I thought we had left, I know we talked about, if you weren't here, about being able to call in, and I know we didn't want to be able to do that in a closed session, but
Right. I think what from the way that I read it, and I spoke to Mr. Forsyth, that we did leave it open, I believe, that you could call in and participate, but you wouldn't be able to vote unless you were physically here.
Yeah, that's correct. For open meetings, you can call in, you can participate, but you can't vote.
is that a statute in there, or is it?
Well, I did look at the Open Meetings Act, and the Open Meeting Act has a provision that says, the Open Meetings Act, those are the standards. If municipalities want to have additional standards that promote openness, you're free to do that. So I started with that as the basic premise. Okay, I think we can do this as long as we're not in conflict with the Open Meetings Act. In other words, we're not permitting something that's prohibited or vice versa, which we're not, because the Open Meetings Act doesn't define what it means to be present at a meeting. So all we're doing is we're saying we're defining that now, and we're saying to be able to vote, you have to be physically present. When it comes to closed sessions, what I've done is said to attend a closed session, you have to be
Yep.
physically present.
Yeah, I guess I have, and maybe I'm the only one, but I just think that if you're going to go to the effort to call in to a meeting, I think you should be able to vote on something. I mean, I completely agree about the closed sessions because you can't control the other end of that.
Right.
But I still think if you can go to the time and that to be able to call in for a meeting, if it's at, no matter what you say, unless time, there are circumstances where you can't make a meeting and you'd like to still be here and have your voice heard. And then that also, to me, means voting, so.
Dan?
Chris, what has changed? Because, again, I'm not trying to be contrary, I just want to understand that last year, you felt it was okay for us.
Right.
Yeah, so what's changed?
Nothing has changed. I mean, I still feel it's okay. It's still my opinion that it's perfectly fine to call in or to video conference in.
And vote.
This is, the questions posed to me at the last board meeting is if we wanted to modify that or prohibit that, can you write us a rule that does that? So I've written a suggested rule. Whether you want to go with the suggestion or not, I leave that up to you. If the majority of this board says, hey, I'm fine with people being able to call in or video conference in, like I've said repeatedly, I think that's lawful. I'm just giving you an alternative to that. And I think the alternative is lawful as well. So in other ways, you've got discretion to go either way on this.
Okay, then I want to support what Bob said. In this day and age, we all have busy lives. I know that you do a lot of travel, and if we can have a high-quality way of being present via video, I think we should be able to vote. I know that even medical exams are being done in treatment by television now. So I do agree with Bob on that issue. I would not want to see us not have that option available. I agree that we shouldn't do it in closed session because you don't know who's in the room on the far end. But I believe we could improve the way that we do the video stuff. I don't think it happened very much. But as you know, there's been a lot of important decisions made, and one vote can make the difference. So I do agree with Bob on that.
Can I clarify, is it
Absolutely.
video, attendance by video? Because that's certainly preferable to just appearing by conference call. I mean, my objection would be, I think it's incredibly difficult for you to be a true part of a meeting if you can't see the people, if you can't see what's going on, if you can't see who's standing up and presenting, etc. I mean, courts of law will not allow you to testify if you can't be seen, generally speaking, because there's no way to judge the credibility of the person who's speaking. So if we're talking video conferencing, and I'm not talking about Skyping on an iPad, which is ridiculous, okay? I mean, we've seen that attempted, and it's not effective. So if you want to attend via video conferencing and you have access to the ability to video conference from another location, I would support that, but not being on a telephone, not being on an iPhone, not being on an iPad Skyping.
Well, Skype will work the problem is on this end, we don't have the technology yet really to do it good.
Well,
That's the thing.
Then I'm saying that then that would not, I mean, we have to define our terms. I can't vote on something if I don't know what we're talking about. So if we're talking about video conferencing, meaning two-way ability to see and judge and all of that, I can support that. But
So what I could do to help the board with this issue is, if the board is fine with all the other amendments to the board rules, we could take the issue of attending meetings, take that out, and then I could give the board different alternatives, alternative language, and let you decide which alternative works best for everybody.
I know that,
I agree. I think I'd rather do the video than the phone. The phone can really be a pain.
I know that we, in community mental health, because we meet in different spots in the state, in the northern Michigan, that we have video conferencing, but I can see them in Houghton Lake, and they can see me, and that's very important.
Yeah.
Because there's body language that you miss, and there's, like you said, there's presentations that you're not getting that is very important. And so we do allow that there, but it is full, I can see the entire board sitting there, and they can see me. And I think that that's important. If we had the high-quality video, going back and forth, I don't have a problem with that.
And I forgot that the courts do this, right? That they do video stuff, and that's legal. So.
So are we all okay with, if we can move on with that one and have Chris maybe give us some options for wording on that and go on with some other issues if we have them with the board rules? Okay, okay. Anything?
I had one.
Yes, Cheryl?
5.2, distribution of agenda and materials. There was language in there that said not later than noon on Friday, which was crossed out. I would like it to be not later than noon. I go out of town a lot on weekends, and I'd like to have my materials before I go out of town.
Is that an okay deadline for staff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, so we can put that back in there?
Sure.
Okay,
I knew you'd
thank
say
you.
yes, Jen. I knew you'd say yes.
Jen's very accommodating. So, anyone else have anything about any of the changes that we made 2 weeks ago? No?
I would move that we support the board rules of order as modified with the exception of the video or the attendance at meetings language.
Okay,
And the new deadline.
And I'll second that.
okay, so moved by
And the-
Commissioner...
And the new deadline, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I said as amended.
Moved by Commissioner Follett, seconded by Commissioner Lathrop. Any other discussion on the board rules? Do we need a roll call, or is
Let me double check on that.
kind of a big one?
We can always do it, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
why
Why don't we
you just
just,
go-
why don't we do a roll call, Bonnie? Thank
Why
you.
not?
Thank you.
Gore Follett,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Klaus,
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. We are moving on to Commission on Aging, the Management Services Agreement, and I believe this
Yeah.
is Jen or Tom.
Well, we're chartered to take a look at various departments for efficiency and effectiveness, and so we set up a quality assessment panel for the group to look at the Commission on Aging, and on December 21st, there was a memo that outlined the various issues that we identified, and one of those was the Management of Services Agreement, which was outlined in the January 12th memo that you have. And so we're asking for board consideration of that action, and the justification for that, the backup, is in the January 12th memo that you have in your packet.
Okay. Does anybody have questions on this? Questions, comments?
Lots of questions.
Who's first? Sunny, you can go first.
Do we do the motion first before we have the questions, or do we have the discussion first? Okay.
We can have the motion first and that, yes.
Either way.
I'm not prepared for the motion, but I
Yeah.
will have to talk about some questions. You know, there's a lot of things Commission on Aging does besides medical issues. You know, a lot of this contract, as I read it, has to do with HIPAA requirements. I failed, you know, somehow or another, Commission on Aging obviously skipped through the cracks and didn't feel they needed to comply with HIPAA. I don't know what the rules, how we ended up where we are. Obviously, it took some time to get there. I don't think there's any question is what I'm looking at is that they are in violation of the HIPAA requirements. What I don't understand is the county health department and the pavilions, another county organization, are very well aware of HIPAA. Why can't we deal with this within ourselves? The idea that we're going to propose a contract to the tune of $327,000 a year without a formal RFP process, without us reviewing the requirements, without us reviewing bids, is totally beyond me that I would even consider voting for a contract that's, you know, at least if I'm reading it, $27,292 a month. That's $327,000 a year. If I'm spending $300,000 a year, I want a really detailed explanation of exactly what I'm going to get for it, and that's certainly not in this packet.
Okay. Yeah, Cheryl.
I would like to propose that we table this matter. I I think we need a study session on this. I think this should be part of our strategic planning. I think that our senior citizens are such an important part of this community that this deserves our time and our energy to fully discuss this whole issue. I don't believe that we have a HIPAA emergency, which is basically how this is being presented to us. Do this or something terrible will happen. One of the downsides of having me as a commissioner is that I'm a lawyer, and so I read the law, and I spend a lot of time talking to our counsel, and we have spent a lot of time discussing this issue. And I will ask him to further clarify my belief that there is not a HIPAA issue that is going to cause us problems. But I would request, it would be my motion that we table the Commission on Aging issue pending, at a minimum, discussion during our strategic planning on the 28th, but my preferred course would be a full-blown study session where we can talk about all of the ramifications of what actions were taken by the previous board at the end of last year, where we want to see the Commission on Aging going, Area Agency on Aging, hear from the public. I can tell you right now that I know Russ and Leslie Knopp very well, and I know that Comfort Keepers is a great organization, and I think they should have the opportunity to bid, just like anybody else, for this contract if we decide that we want to go the route of offering a contract. But I think it's not timely. I don't think we have enough answers to be prudent in making this decision. I don't think it's in anybody's best interest for us to go forward right now. And I would ask Mr. Forsyth to give us just a little bit about why this is not a HIPAA emergency.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
And then
I can
Tom
answer that.
has a comment. But we'll let Chris go ahead.
All right. So the question, well, let me start off by saying, first off, it is important for us to comply with the HIPAA. We should comply with all laws. Certainly, we should be working towards having the Commission on Aging be HIPAA compliant, since they are considered a business associate of the Area Agency on Aging. Is there an immediate threat or an immediate exposure of liability? No, I don't see that, and that's the way that the HIPAA laws are written. HIPAA does not create a private cause of action. In other words, it does not allow a private citizen to go out and sue entities who are violating the Act by not developing a policy or not complying with the privacy decisions. When there are violations, the enforcement is done through the federal government, through the Department of Health and Human Services. They do an investigation, and if they find no compliance, then they will work with the entity to become compliant in an informal process. If the informal process doesn't work, which takes time, then it becomes more formal, and then you could be subject to civil penalties, fines. If it's really egregious, then it's turned over to the Department of Justice. They do a criminal investigation, and you face prosecution. But those are several steps down the road where we're talking with the worst case scenario, and we're not talking about the worst case scenario here.
And just so that I'm clear, in 2014, did we not become sort of under the umbrella
Yes.
of the Area Agency on Aging? Are they not the covered agency?
They are the covered entity, and we are their business associate.
So we are covered under them.
So can I ask, Cheryl, pull your microphone just a little bit closer? Because I can hardly hear you, so I don't know if anybody out there can.
What do you want to know?
No.
Yell.
I think Tom had a
Okay,
question.
I got a few questions.
Okay.
Chris, are we, just to reiterate that last question, are we compliant if we're working with the area agency?
Well, I'll turn that over to Ms. DeHaan. I know she's put a lot of work into reviewing it and has looked at the Commission on Aging. I don't think we've the Commission on Aging has developed the proper policy to deal with HIPAA issues, but I'll leave that up to.
Yeah, that's correct. So the AAA of Northern Michigan is covered under HIPAA. All of their software and systems that they store their client data in is all HIPAA compliant. The problem is when they partner with us and our processes and systems that we use on our end to serve those mutual clients. And that's where the concern is for us, is that we've known since 2014, and I have a memo here, that, that we needed to be HIPAA compliant regarding this, and we have not been compliant. And so recognizing that and the challenges that we're having with our IT infrastructure, the complexity of HIPAA is absolutely amazing. Commissioner Wheelock, you asked kind of, we have other departments that are HIPAA compliant, and the health department they have a huge manual. We looked at that. We spent several months examining this issue and trying to determine how we could meet that standard. In fact, there was at one point staff was asked to watch a video and fill out a form, and there was no explanation of what those HIPAA requirements were. And staff, when I talked to them the other week, I said, you watched a video and you signed a form that said you understood HIPAA, but do you realize how that actually impacts your work on a daily basis? And unfortunately, not one staff member in the room was able to do it. So our smallest efforts to even do that are extremely complicated. And on our end of things, the system that runs this is very antiquated. Everything is basically manually done. It's in an Access database, which we've had an IT review of that. There is health information that is stored within that. There is other personally identifiable information that's stored in that. So from administration standpoint, we do have a significant concern that there is a liability for the county related to that. I want to, commend the field staff that are out working on a daily basis. They have, I've had an opportunity to work with them, and they do an absolutely great job. So this is no reflection on them. I've really enjoyed getting to know them and hearing their stories. But this is really an administrative issue. It's something that has been identified and known since back in 2014, but no action has been taken. Some of the benefits of considering this agreement is the technology that we would be able to access for providing services to clients. It would provide training for staff, professional training that we currently don't have, that when we have senior citizens that have growing needs, when we have complexities of care, that education and training for staff is essential. And so by doing a partnership, we would be able to provide that to staff. Going back, the standards are already in place. We're not looking to change the status of county employees or their benefits or their compensation. We're really looking to kind of to grab a hold of a whole host of opportunities to enhance these services to our COA clients. I think the technology is absolutely amazing. I've had an opportunity to look at it and to see how it works and how staff can have access to information that's secure, that's not on a printout and a half sheet of paper that's printed out and given to them. Instead, it pulls up a client record in a secure database, and you can see notes regarding client preferences, what their needs are, things that they like and dislike, who their family members are in case of an emergency. All of that information is readily available. It provides access for families to check up on services that are provided, something that we currently don't have. If we were to engage in a partnership, it gives clients the ability to access third-party payers. Right now, our systems don't allow us to do that. We're essentially a cash and carry organization, but there are many other opportunities that clients have to utilize third-party payers that will provide them with financial relief through doing something like this. We have a host of resources from professionals. There's staff that we currently don't have that are providing supervision and resources that are available. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Dan?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Tom's turn. You're right.
okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I just wanted to put a hold on tabling this, so that, because people out here in the public might have come to speak during public comment during this part of the agenda. And I also agree with Sonny about bidding for contracts, and because I come in midstream as a new commissioner, I'm a little uncomfortable with something that didn't go out for bid, even though there was some history about bidding in this field going back to last year, which is why they chose Comfort Keepers. And I understand the owners that Cheryl mentioned are fine people and they run a great business, but there may be other businesses in our area that provide the same service. I'm also concerned about, through attrition, the loss of county jobs. If this was just starting, I would definitely want you to bid this out at this size of a contract. I would think that the county would be best off by bidding the request for proposals, and that's what I would just hope we would do academically all the time, and not now and then, or doesn't look like this time, because I think that's the standard, and maybe we need to understand what our practice is here. Is this in government, maybe this is considered a best practice. I don't know. It doesn't personally hit me as the best practice to not bid. So maybe we have to have our own idea of what our idea of best practices is, because I think this conflicts with that. So it's coming from being midstream and not being here when this all began to looking at it academically, and I definitely have issues with it. And I hope before we table it and move on to the next subject that the public has a chance to comment, because I can see that there are some Commission on Aging workers here tonight.
And Dan, did you have a comment?
A couple things they're not necessarily related, but I'm going to say them.
Okay.
I got a call from a patient. She's a patient of mine, and she's also a constituent, and very concerned about using Comfort Keepers and HIPAA, for HIPAA. Anyway, she was told by a county employee that cleans her house that if we pass this tonight, that she, the house cleaner, cannot clean the house on a regular basis anymore. That it would be, this person, my patient, would be getting a different house cleaner every week. And now, is that true?
That is not true.
No, it's
So
not true.
that concerns me very much, that we have county employees misinforming our vulnerable old people. Maybe this is a single case, I don't know. But I think that bothers me. Another thing about, and I'm switching hats now.
Okay.
I'm on staff at a couple hospitals, and I have 2 different offices. I have over 30,000 patients. And I have a HIPAA officer in my office, both offices, and HIPAA is complex, and it's constantly changing. We get upgrades now. We got to this now. We got to that now, and Chris never knew that they were so friendly, because I'm always scared if I'm going to mess up HIPAA, So now I know it's not. They jump down your throat. But I know it's really complex, and I have to use Munson, I have to use the American Medical Association, the American Hospital Association, I've got to use eClinical, which is my, the medical records, electronic medical records that I use, and same one Munson uses. And all that's integrated. I have people constantly talking to my staff about HIPAA. So I do know it's complex, at least in my little world. So, and I would imagine that's true for the county as well. The last thing I want to ask you is 2 things. Why is it so urgent, and why didn't we get bids?
So the urgency was based upon an email that I received from the AAA of Northern Michigan, which said that they wouldn't be able to work with us after the end of January if we didn't have an agreement in place. I've since received communication from them that says they're willing to continue to work with us. They have elevated the HIPAA concern on their side of things. So I would still caution the board and ask council for determination as to whether or not we should continue to serve those clients, knowing that we're not compliant, that we don't have an agreement in place, because I think that is an issue. So that's the reason and the rationale for bringing this to the board when we are. And then the second part of your question
Was bids.
Oh, the bids. So in 2016, we did issue an RFP to provide backup services for the Commission on Aging. For example, staff works an 8 to 5 schedule or somewhere similar into their Monday through Friday. We have a number of government holidays where staff isn't available to work. And so we need backup services so that we can maintain those services for clients. And so we issued an RFP, and we received one response from Comfort Keepers. And they have been a provider of services for a number of years for the county. We have an existing partnership with them. And so given the need to address this issue, given that we already have a partnership in place, given that there's already an understanding of how we work together now without the use of technology, this made sense to be able to provide us with the solution that we need. I think this is an extremely complex issue too. There are many moving parts, and so when we have that standard and that base partnership between someone, we have the opportunity to build upon that. This is going to be a period of transition, of making little tweaks along the way to figure out what works best, and so that was the reason for doing that.
Okay. So staff is recommending we go forward with this.
I would continue to recommend that.
Yeah.
Sonny, you had something else to say?
Over the years, I've spoken with hundreds of citizens that receive services from the Commission on Aging. I can count on just a few fingers how many times I've ever heard a complaint. Our staff does a fabulous job. I think the HIPAA piece is probably something we all missed. I think it was missed on, not necessarily a responsibility of the people, the field workers that were working with the clients, but it was certainly a failure on behalf of the administration at the Commission on Aging, and therefore it becomes a failure on us. The idea when we talk about this contract that was signed in late 2016, partnership with Comfort Keepers, and that being a reason to move forward into an extended contract with them, at least to the best of my memory, I never seen an RFP or a bidding process or anything, or had any discussion about Grand Traverse County entering into that contract. So the idea that we're going to expand a contract that we, the Board of Commissioners, had no input on in the first place seems a little strange to me, because just because there's a contract that someone else entered into on behalf of the Board of Commissioners doesn't mean that if we're going to expand that contract, I don't think that the Board of Commissioners necessarily needs discussion and input.
Are you going to ask for public comment, or should
I
I
am in a
make a
second.
motion?
I am in a minute, because
Okay.
I get to talk too.
Right. I just wanted to, I was curious.
And Bob had.
Yeah, I agree, having a study session. I think our plate's going to be real full at the strategic planning session.
Yeah.
I don't mind next week having a good study session on this to get some more in-depth questions and whatever going. But, yeah, they did have an RFP for it, so, we can't say that they didn't bid it out. They did. Comfort Keeper was the only one. And in this kind of game, there's not many players.
But it looked different, Bob. They weren't bidding for this. They were bidding for substitute help. It
And
wasn't a
yeah.
$300,000 contract.
And I actually think that contract, correct me if I'm wrong, is between Comfort Keepers and the Commission on Aging. They had the ability to contract that out. So we, as a board, haven't had the ability to look at this and question this at all. This is the first time anything big from Commission on Aging has come to us, because we made these changes at the end of the year to eliminate the Commission on Aging board, that now these things will come to us, and we haven't had these things come to us before. So I think that it's a good point that Bob and Cheryl make, that we need the ability now to ask some more questions and get more informed on this whole, exactly, on a lot of things that Commission on Aging does, can do. I think that because it was the responsibility of another commission, that we haven't had that opportunity. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The
go
other
ahead.
thing I will add is, I mean, we had the COA board itself sending out false information of what was going on and trying to scare people as it was. So, I mean, there was a lot of scare tactics going out, and that happens county level, state level, anytime they feel like they're going to have their job taken away, which this isn't the case. But, yeah, I definitely think we could have a good study
Study
session on this.
session.
Yes. So,
Excuse me. I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I would tell you that in our discussions, the driving issue for me was that we were not in compliance, and that concerned me. And so I always felt my job is if there's a symptom of a problem, and we can resolve it, do it. I know we have governmental immunity, but I was afraid, since it had gone on for years, been warned in 2014, hadn't done anything about it, that under gross negligence, we might be vulnerable. And so that was a sense of urgency I had as I was concerned about something happening. Fortunately, it didn't. It looks like the HIPAA requirements aren't as concerned as I was. But, not having experience in HIPAA, saw a problem, thought, needed to fix it so that we're not liable, and so let's move quickly to resolve it, was the rationale behind it.
So, Dan, you have
Also,
a comment.
it isn't just HIPAA. The Comfort Keepers offers us a true upscale in the resources and treatment and care of these people. It isn't just HIPAA. Because all the stuff you're talking wasn't just HIPAA.
Correct, there are some
That's right.
significant benefits to the clients,
So
to the
that we have to
partnerships.
decide whether we want to
Right.
spend the money on those benefits,
And that's a big decision.
and that's a big decision, yeah.
It is.
I would encourage you to talk to clients of both Comfort Keepers and the Commission on Aging and see if they see a difference in their care and treatment. Because I'm not sure that it's always better one way than the other. So to say that this is an upgrade of their individual care, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think I can show you cases that work both sides of that coin. But the important thing here is the fact that, I don't think this is a knee-jerk thing. I don't think we should jump into this. We talk about the fact that in 2014, we were notified that we were non-HIPAA compliant. The Board of Commissioners was never notified of us being non-HIPAA compliant. The Commission on Aging Board may have been, the Commission on Aging Administration may have been, the Board of Commissioners was never made aware of that. So I think, there's a number of reasons that we talked about making significant changes in the administration and the way we do business with the Commission on Aging. This is a prime example of why, we felt that there's some necessary changes that need to be made in the way we do business at the Commission on Aging.
Just one last comment.
Yes.
We simply are recommending this based on the work that's been done. But we also understand that it's important that you be comfortable before you do it. And so I don't have any problem if you haven't had the time, some of you being new, to go through an in-depth discussion. I think we've made a compelling case. I think the Quality Assessment Panel has done a good job, and we're not concerned about having an in-depth discussion on that, the rationale and why we did it. The main thing is we implement what you want, and if you're not comfortable, then I wouldn't have any concerns about having another discussion to get you to the point that you're comfortable, and that's only fair. So, we feel it's been well thought out, but we're simply recommending, this is what we recommend, and if you're not comfortable and need more discussion on it, let's have the discussion and go in and answer the questions.
Okay. Any more from the board before I let the public speak? So I understand there might be some people in the audience who would like to speak, maybe? No? Just here to listen?
They're all bashful,
You don't have to be afraid.
kind of like me.
Okay. Okay. So,
So do we need a
so we
motion
bring
to
it, I would
table
bring it
this?
back to the board. So what is the pleasure of the board at this point?
I would
Yes, ma'am.
I would make a motion that we table this pending a study session.
Support.
Okay.
I second.
All over.
Sonny already
Oh,
seconded. That's okay. So,
Third.
moved
third,
by
yeah.
Commissioner, we're thorough. Moved by Commissioner Follett, seconded by Commissioner Wheelock. Any further discussion? Do we want to have this next Wednesday? Would that give everybody enough time to compile your questions and,
What's the date? The 25th?
Well, that's
Yeah, I can do it.
It's the 25th.
28th.
28th?
No, 28th is our...
no, the 28th
study
is
session.
January
That's it.
25th is next
January
Wednesday.
25th, next Wednesday.
I guess all I would say is that, you know, I would like an opportunity to maybe get you some questions so that the time would be well spent as far as what we're looking for.
It'd be time for us, for anyone on the board to come in
I
and
mean,
talk
not
to the...
not just on this issue. I'm interested in the history of the Commission on Aging and...
I think we want far more extensive information
Than
than
we've
we
got.
have been provided yet. So I think that this is a big step, and a lot of the, especially the new
I would-
commissioners,
I
really
would
need
be-
to understand what's going on
I
here.
would be interested in having the analysis of the return of the Commission on Aging millage money and what the thought process was on that. You know, I only know what I read in the newspaper, so not to say that it wasn't wonderful
You
what
can
I
watch
read
the
in the
video too.
newspaper,
It's
but...
online. Our meeting, and that would show what the logic was behind it.
Well,
Actually, not that one.
Was that the one that?
That was the one.
No, I don't think that was.
I'm sorry.
I thought that was the
Is
one.
this something that is this too much to ask the staff to get all this ready in 1 week?
Seems like a week isn't enough, does it?
I would think you need more time to get ready. Do you?
Well, I would ask staff, time is of the essence, I think. I'm wondering.
I'm happy to work to whatever degree in order to provide you the information that you need. If I can get the questions or an idea of the information.
And I don't know that I can do that in a week.
Do we
be
want to
honest with
do February 8th?
Is that, what's our next,
I can probably do
next
that.
meeting?
maybe.
when's our next meeting?
February 1st.
First is our next meeting.
First is our next regular meeting. Do you want to put it on the
8th
agenda?
would work
The
for
8th
me.
would be a study session.
I'd say the 8th is good.
That would
The
be
8th is
great.
good. That gives everyone ample
Little more
time to
to think.
submit questions, come in and ask questions, and research as you would like
That'd be great.
to do that, and it gives staff time to prepare whatever presentations they think would be helpful to everybody's good understanding. And like Tom said, I want everybody to feel comfortable about what we're doing. I don't want to push anything through too quickly where, people don't feel good about what we're doing.
Well, I think there's a significant difference here. Up until, January 1st, we had a Commission on Aging board.
Exactly.
Which took all of these reports from all of these different entities and their administration. They reviewed the work that was being done. This Board of Commissioners never had that information.
So
We did
our
have-
learning
we did
curve is
have-
pretty high.
We did have commissioners that sat on that board, but as far as getting the information back to this board, who is now ultimately responsible to make these decisions, we don't have the background.
No, we don't, and that's what we're looking for, I think. So we're clear on what we'd like to do. So we have a motion and a second to table this and make it a study session. Is that the proper way to do this?
Sure.
Okay. And any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, so we will schedule the study session
For the 8th,
for the 8th,
February 8th.
for that.
February.
Okay. Move on to finance. We have a financial report from our finance director, Ms. Lundquist.
Good evening. So as promised in your packet for tonight's meeting was included the first of the monthly reports. If I may have the opportunity, I'll just walk you through kind of that memo and that first report so you know what's been provided and what to expect of the format going forward. It's outlined in the memo itself, and I believe this is towards the back. It's quite lengthy. As I had stated in the memo, with the first report being provided to you of this nature, it was designed with the format in mind so that it mirrors the budget document that was adopted for 2017. So the beginning page is a summary of expenditures by fund. Then it's followed by the general fund revenue sources by source, revenues by source, and expenditures by department. and then it's followed by each fund with a similar summary of revenues by source and expenditures by department. On a monthly basis, I would ask that it serves the pleasure of the board that I provide the summary of expenditures by fund, and then the general fund summary of revenues by source and expenditures by department, and then on a quarterly basis provide the full 30-some page document with the detail of all funds. The memo then does indicate, although I'm sure you're all aware of how to read financial statements, I figured that because this is a public document and would also be available online, it may be beneficial for our citizen viewers as well to just note what those column headings are and how really best to look at the activity that's being reported. So for instance, turning to the general fund expenditures, which are on page 101 of your board packet, you'll see that we've got the fiscal year 15 actual activity. So for any given year, for instance, in 17, when we move into reporting January, that would be fiscal year 16 actual activity. But for this purpose, fiscal year 15 actual activity, you have your fiscal year 16 amended budget, the activity year to date, so this is for the reports through November 30. The available balance, that would be the amount remaining or unexpended of the budget at November 30 or recorded at that time. You have the percent of budget used. So at 11 months through the year, 92% of the year would have passed. So for revenues, if we had done our job in seeking those sources of revenue, you would hope to see that we are above 92% in our revenue collections. And if we've done our jobs in controlling costs, we would be below 92% on our expenditures. As you look down the column for expenditures in any of the funds or the general fund departments, you will notice that they are quite well below 92%. That's largely as a result of the fact that we post many of our journal entries for internal charges and cost allocations quarterly. So really, the activity will only align 4 times a month, and those interim months will appear lower of the percentage of the year that's passed because we haven't posted that activity. The only way that that would align is if we posted that activity on a monthly basis.
And why don't you post that monthly?
Because of the amount of detail. One of the things we're looking at and working with IT consultant, for instance, is the best way to account for shared costs and allocate those. They're very labor intensive. With the way that we have historically done them. So we're looking at a better way to streamline them and post them so that in fact we could move in that direction.
And you're going to provide us with some rationale for why you want to share those costs across the organization?
Well, certainly I can. I mean, if you would like me to go into that now. So
no, I don't want you to now, but I'm saying at some point in time you'll give us your. I mean, you're working with IT to come up with a new way to do this. I'd like to know the rationale for why you'd like to do that.
Okay, so the
you don't have to do it today. I'm sure we're going to have a budget conversation at some other time, but
I would be happy to have one with you. Yes. So then the final column on the general fund expenditures was, and it just turned off of that page, I think it was 101, was the percentage of the total general fund budget. I assume that might be useful information to know. I suppose that concludes my presentation of the financial reports that were provided to you, but if, well, Mr. Merritt has a question.
Yeah, so in a month, we'll have the year-end and quarterly report through the end of December, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so in fact, you'll have these 2 larger reports 2 months in a row. I would then caveat as well that being that we are in January, for instance, if we were to have provided you with December's reports as of right now, one is January 18th, so we haven't gotten to posting those journal entries, and 2, we're still receiving bills for items or services that were provided in December.
I'm just looking forward to it. And And in departments like HR, where there's no director, is that included in the budget or not included in the budget?
There was not a budget adjustment to remove the amount that had been appropriated for the director's salary, so that would still be reflected in the amount of available balance
Okay,
or the
it is-
percentage
it is in here
expended to
then.
date.
Yeah, okay. It's budgeted even though it's not an expense because there's no one there.
Correct.
Sure.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jody? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have been looking for financial reports, and I look forward to them, to being able to see every month how we're doing. Thank you. So we're going to move on to old unfinished business, which is to schedule our strategic planning. I think everybody got a memo. Hope. It was sent out yesterday afternoon from me. We would like to have our strategic planning on January 28th, that's a Saturday. And it will be facilitated by John, how do you pronounce it?
Ammerhein.
Ammerhein.
Ammerhein. He's with MSU Extension. Most of you have met him before. He comes to the MAC conferences. He's a very good presenter. He does the new county commissioner training. I've been to several classes of his. He offers a class on good government, how to conduct good meetings.
What's his name
Things like
again?
that. John Ammerhein.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was
If
the
you
date
saw him,
again?
you would know.
The date again?
January 28th, it's a Saturday.
Okay.
It'll be from 9:30 in the morning to 2.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Where, I think we are still working on that, or do we have anything on that?
I thought we said Twin Lakes.
So
I think that's not available.
Yeah, there's some
Well-
programming downstairs in the basement that it
The
made.
drum thing.
Yeah, so we were looking for an alternative location and thinking here in the second floor training room might be an option.
Okay.
But there's some pros and cons even related to that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out.
So they're still seeking out the right venue. So
If we do it Saturday, because this is open, right? So we'll need to make sure doors are unlocked downstairs and
We'll have to have
all that
security here.
good stuff.
Absolutely, yes.
We don't want to have an oversight of that and
No.
inadvertently have people locked out.
It's,
Well, and we may want to even consider
Open
doing
to
it
the
in
public.
chambers where we can tape it.
And we do have video recording ability in the second floor training room. I
Better in
believe.
here,
Is
though.
it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's possible.
yeah, we could do it in here, couldn't we? Yeah, we could do it in
You know,
here, too.
Good.
you know, the one thing about strategic planning sessions is there's great opportunities, you know, and one of the things is to make sure that everyone is willing to speak openly, whether or not we're on TV or not, because that becomes an issue. Sometimes you have people that don't want to participate or don't want to talk about some issues because they may or may not be controversial. You know, shy people like me don't want to speak up. so-
Shy people like you?
I just don't want to get on a little square with you again this
Yeah,
time.
that little 2-foot square piece of canvas can't become.
That should be videotaped.
Videotaping that again, right?
So we will work on an appropriate venue
We will.
Yeah.
for that. And I hope everybody will get a chance soon. If you haven't looked at it yet, there is a sort of a agenda. There's not a lot on the agenda. John will guide us through the good discussions that we can have and making sure the information gets out. Everybody will have a chance to talk, and we can kind of flesh out all the ideas that we have and see how we want to proceed. So I think that's okay. Is that okay with everybody? We'll go with just nods and everyone is
So-
okay with that?
Are we just going to have it here?
We
Or are
can
you
do-
still looking?
Yeah.
We can do it here if you'd like. I mean, I just needed a confirmation on the date, and then we can confirm the location.
If everybody's
Yeah.
okay with the date, then
Long-
let us know the location, but if it's preferred to have it
Is
in
it
this
Twin
building.
Lakes as
You
well?
know, you want to do it in this room, or you want to do it,
Well, Jen's gonna work on that part.
See how we want to do that.
The
If you
only
want a
problem-
different space, maybe there'd be a room at the Chamber of Commerce. They have a lot of technology there that we don't have in this room as well, so.
The library also has a room.
The library has a
good
general
room.
purpose
That's right, they have a
room.
reviews.
They have a very nice general purpose room.
Twin Lakes may be available, but they have a drum group in
It's a
the
drumming
basement.
group downstairs. I don't know that we want to do
I just don't think that would be conducive for a lot of discussion, so.
Maybe not.
that kinda-
drum.
Yeah.
It's a drum practice thing.
Might be cathartic in some way, but I don't think that's going to be conducive to
Maybe for
us.
breaks, we could go down and pound on the drums or something. That might be
some
helpful.
benefit in.
I absolutely love the facility at Twin Lakes, and I've used it many, many times,
Bless
but
you.
the fact is, the acoustics in there aren't really good if you
Yeah.
have very many
Yeah.
people trying to hear what's going on.
Dan,
I
did
think
you
there's
have a
some
comment?
benefit in not having it in this room. So we
think-
feel a little different, we think a little different, you know,
We're going to take the desk elves and bring in lawn chairs.
Well, I think
okay.
it needs to be a little bit more casual
Yeah,
than that, so that
yeah.
people do feel free to
We'll,
talk. This is an intimidating setup, in
Yeah.
my
We'll
opinion.
investigate, the chamber is an option, Beta has a very nice facility, I mean, we'll find, this would work out fine, so we'll find a good place.
Okay, we were just basically looking for the date and the, sort of the structure. Everybody's good?
Yep.
Okay, good. We will move on to Human Resources update. I know that several commissioners have asked to have an update of what's going on with our Human Resource Department right now. I know that Jody has been doing double duty, absolutely, and in helping us to restructure, or taking the lead in restructuring this department and deciding exactly how this department should be. I can tell you right now that we had a full-time temp, correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm looking over here, who we've offered full-time, permanent employment. I understand she's been with us, I haven't met her, I understand she's been with us for several months, and they feel she's doing a great job. I also understand that we have an offer and a verbal acceptance from another candidate for a personnel specialist, who hopefully will be starting soon. Yes.
That's correct.
So we have one professional and one administrative. We also have another good position open for another personnel specialist. So actively recruiting for another human resource professional. And I've been informed that all functions of human resources things are being handled. Things are being taken care of. Yes.
We are doing our best to triage
Okay.
emergent items
Okay.
and maintain day-to-day operations. We had quite a bit of labor-intensive work that had to be performed the first, or I guess all of last week and the week prior, as our system, as the Deputy Administrator Dahan had referred to as antiquated, required that we enter manually all deduction information for all benefits with rates that changed for all employees by hand. So
that is-
that did go off without a hitch.
Good.
We had been notified, I believe, by anyone that had an issue with their election if maybe we didn't have the appropriate information on file, and work to correct those. So we're
Okay.
moving forward, and
Okay.
excited about the new hires.
Good. So I think some commissioners might have a few questions. I do want to say that just when we're talking about human resources, that we have to be very careful.
Names.
We can't have names, specific situations, things like that we are asking about. It's a privacy issue for people. So when we're talking about human resources, we are talking about the biggest resource we have in the county, is the people that work for us. So just that little caveat before we start a discussion we need to keep it kind of at a 30,000-foot level, I like to call it, where we can talk about the department and the positions and things like that, and how we'd like to move the department forward. So with that, Tom, you had your hand
great.
up. Yes?
There are a lot of employees right here, and everyone sitting here tonight, the staff and the commissioners, we're all employees too. In fact, I would be a new employee. I just started at the first of the month. This has been one of my concerns, and I'm part of the group of people that wants to discuss human resources as a department. So I'll just make a couple comments, and then can be thinking about answering maybe one question, and that is what type of an HR department are we planning to have that appears not to have an HR director? I liked, as much as I could tell, and what I could find out as just a person who lives in the county, that what Jen Seaman did as a HR director was a great example. And I would hope that we could have another HR director, because my business and academic background just says that it's the best idea to have a director. So it appears we're not looking for one, but we're looking for one or two specialists, and I think that's great. But I'm not in on exactly why we're not looking for a HR director. So that's my biggest question. And I know, I'll go back to the Comfort Keepers thing for a second, because I can see in the contract that basically Commission on Aging employees, it appears that the Comfort Keepers would handle the HR function for those employees.
No, no.
I think that's in the contract. No? Okay, misunderstood then. Sorry about that.
But new hires would be employees of Comfort Keepers, not of Grand Traverse County.
Yeah.
To
That's
provide
what I-
flexibility for
That's
So the
what I
HR
understood, yes.
The HR
So by
matters.
attrition, we're going to eliminate that department.
Okay, I got that. Well, she's disagreeing with
She
you. but-
disagrees,
Yeah.
but-
We'll just finish here for a second. I would like us to integrate another description into how we set our quality standards besides best practices. I would like to be known as a great employer. We're about the 7th largest employer in the county, between 475, 500 employees. You would need an HR director for less than 100 employees, as far as I'm concerned. And I would like us to adopt the language of a model workplace. And a model workplace symbolizes a very good working environment. It's the polar opposite of a hostile work environment. And it also adds to me, as far as I'm concerned, it adds to the confidentiality, which we're actually considering right now as we talk about the department, not to talk about individuals or job titles even, because I just wanted to keep it general. But if you have a grievance, you usually go to the HR department, and you would trust that everything that you do in the HR department is confidential. And it could be a health concern, and you don't want all the employees to know about that. It could be personal matters inside your family. It could be very personal, and maybe the employee needs to seek some attention for some counseling or something. So it's very private and very confidential, and I do think it's best handled by our own employees. And I'm concerned that we got to the point where we didn't have a regular employee, for a minute at least, before Jody stepped up to help. We did have a temporary employee from a service, the Kelly Services. So I think if we're going to be a great employer, that we need to consider the HR department maybe first and foremost at this point. And I want this to be a great workplace, and I want to work at a great workplace. And I'm a new employee, and you've got the message. You know, I'm very concerned about this. So I really want to go carefully through the process of deciding what we're going to do. And if somebody wants to explain how we function without an HR director, I'm ready to listen to that.
I think Bob has a question.
Well, go ahead and answer if you want to.
I think I think from our discussions, we couldn't agree more with you that we want to be a model employer, that we value our employees, and we value the work that the HR department provides, because it touches every department, like finance, like IT. The workings impact everyone, so it's extremely important to us. We are very grateful that Jody has taken on the additional workload to serve as the interim HR director. On your questions regarding that specific position, I think we're kind of in an evaluative process right now and trying to determine, what is the model that we should have in that department to serve our employees the best. we are not currently recruiting for an HR director position. And part of the reason for that is because we've always done it and because we've always had it, doesn't mean that that's been the best thing for us. So we're looking at what our options are and trying to, one, understand the functions of the department and what truly goes on, how we can beef up those services and where we need to beef up those services. It's, we're excited that we have the new temporary employee who's accepted. She's been an asset to the department, that we have a new personnel specialist that's coming on board, that Jody is spending an incredible amount of time sorting through issues and researching and helping to support the functions of the county government and serving the 475 employees that we have.
Yeah, I mean, no one on this board has wanted this to not be a good place to work, but what does that mean? I mean, we're in the catch-22 where financially this county's been so mismanaged throughout the years that, yeah, the employees are aggravated because we've had to saddle them with more cost. We haven't had many choices. It would be nice to eventually get to where people do want to work for us, and hopefully at some point we'll get there. I completely disagree that the only people that can do HR are county employees. Where I work, most of the HR, I have nobody on site. Everybody's downstate. Am I suffering? No. A lot of companies outsource some of the HR work. There's a lot of the HR work that can be outsourced. I agree we probably do need a director or someone that's over that. They've actively pursued it for, 2 years now or whatever.
That's right.
For whatever reason, this, that, and the other, it just hasn't come through. So, hopefully we'll get there. It is serious. It is a serious matter to get HR situated, though. So,
Cheryl.
I guess what I haven't heard and what I have always found to be one of the most significant functions of HR are the programs that encourage staff. The Employee Wellness Program, which I think was funded at a phenomenal $5,000 and was asked to be, justify spending $5,000 for employee wellness. Employee recognition, education and training for employees. There's a huge liability when employees are not current on federal and state laws as they relate to things like HIPAA, sexual harassment, gender identity, things that are constantly changing and that you can't anticipate that people are going to know by osmosis. They need to have training. Benefits are another area, constantly changing. We need someone on site, or if you're outsourcing it, they need to be somebody who's easily attainable, who can answer those questions in a timely manner, and I've heard that hasn't been the case so far with the outsourcing. HR provides information on opportunities within the organization for people to pursue additional opportunities so that we can build our talent from within. Job issues that come up, conflicts amongst people or departments. These are all things that you need people on site who are invested in our number one product, our only product, people. That's the only thing we do. We don't build a doggone thing. We don't make a doggone thing. We provide people to provide services to the taxpayers of Grand Traverse County. And if we can't do a better job of nurturing, and I'm not talking babying, I'm not talking being, your favorite grandmother who's handing out the goodies. I'm talking about encouraging people and being there and helping them grow so that they can do their jobs. Then we're not doing our job. And HR cannot do that with Jody, God bless you, thank you for stepping up, but I don't think you have HR training. If you do, that you weren't hired to be HR. I think you're a finance person, not an HR person. So, that you're doing what you're doing, that's great, but you're not HR. The person that we've hired as a consultant, where is she? Is she here tonight? Mm-mm. Is she in the state here tonight? Has she been in the state in the last month or two? We don't have boots on the ground to meet the needs of our employees, and you cannot expect that you're going to get the best out of your employees if you're not willing to give a little bit back, and that's what HR is for. And so I am really, really, I mean, this is one of the primary reasons I ran was the complaints and the concerns that I heard, the bleeding of employees. I mean, people used to, okay, I'm going to date myself here. I mean, I'm old as dirt, but I mean, people used to kill for the chance to work for Grand Traverse County. It was one of the plum jobs, if you could get a job working at the county, because you knew you were going to be working with good people, you were going to have a chance for advancement, they were going to treat you good. We can't get anybody to take any jobs anymore. What the heck? What the heck?
If I want to
let Jody
insert,
respond.
I'm sorry.
Please,
I mean,
go ahead.
I work with a tremendous team. It's not just myself that's really stepped up. The people in my department, the people in the finance department, the people in administration, across the county, there are still great people that work here, and they wake up in the morning and they come here and they know that the work that they do is valuable and it serves the community. So while there may be vacancies in the HR department, and of course, I know, speaking on behalf of myself, I would go so far as to say, speaking on behalf of administration, we are happy to hear the support and value that you place on employee development. We would love to be able to see someone move up through the organization, to have that training. We are seeking every opportunity to help bring any and all of our processes into not only the 21st century, but into this decade, so that we're updating the safety videos. One of the things that we talked about recently with the benefits administrator that we have handling our health care benefits is they've signed us up, our current staff, for access to a portal so that we can start to structure the safety videos when we have new hires to those specific departments or the functions that they'll be performing, as opposed to a video for safety made in the 1990s. So we're looking at all of those things, and I think that there's a tremendous opportunity here. So that's, I want to, commend the staff that has stepped up with me in ensuring that we continue to meet the needs of the other departments, but to voice that we may be facing some difficulty in the vacancies right now and having to step up, but it won't always be this way, and we're glad to have that vision that's provided from the board on the direction you would like to see the county as an employer head. And we're really excited to be a part of that direction.
Bob,
And I think the reason it was the place for everybody to come is because, I know this is going to sound bad, but there were no structural changes ever made to help sustain financially what was going on. A hiring freeze or a pay freeze for a year for no raise is not something that sustains financial viability. So I think they did love coming here because they were never really saddled with additional costs. Now that we've done that, you've had some of the older employees that said, this isn't what I signed up for. I mean, it sucked that we had to do it. I'll be the first one to tell you I didn't like having to vote for what we had to vote for, but moving forward, now that we're there, I think we can make ways to do it better.
Have there been exit interviews, Bob, to substantiate that position? Because I've heard you say that publicly a number of times. Have there been exit interviews conducted of the people who have left the county in the last year and a half, which is in all of the HR documents that I've seen as part of the HR function, is to conduct exit interviews in order to learn why do people leave, what their thought processes are. Do you have any? Do you have any data to support that position, that people left because of the financial as opposed to because of any other reason?
I think that's the biggest part.
How do you know that? How do you know
Harold
that?
Stocking left because of having to pay.
Well, we're going to...
That was public. That was a public
okay, that's
discussion.
fair enough, but can we...
We've had people leave because of that.
Can we ask the administration if there have been any exit interviews?
I did. I asked that question.
We have, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We have done exit interviews. I don't believe we've done much with the information that we got. I would also tell you that we have made 3 offers for the director's position. The latest one was 2 weeks ago. We were quite excited about the candidate, and then there was an article in the paper and the ticker, and she withdrew because of concerns. And I couldn't agree more about investing in people. I worked 3 weekends, and I'll give you a copy. I developed a complete curriculum architecture for training and development over a 3-year period in depth. I worked 3 weekends on it. I gave that to, I think, most of you in December. But quite frankly, I don't have the resources to implement it. But I've given you the model and the outline, and you do have to invest in people, and it tells them that they have value. I'm a big believer in that, but I have to have the resources to do it. But I will be happy to provide that document for you if that would give you an idea of some of the things I think we should be doing.
And so if at our strategic planning, we were to say that our employees are a value, and we want you to put resources there, then we would put resources there, wouldn't we?
Yes,
Because that would be our directive to the administration.
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I hope I'm wrong on their not leaving for financial, but that's a big part of being unhappy, is if they have to pay, if they went from 6% originally to now they're 20% of having to pay for the health care costs. That factors a lot into employee happiness.
I think that's speculation, unless you've got data.
Oh, it is speculation, but I
Okay.
believe you'll find that's probably a good reason for some of it. So.
I think Dan has a comment, please.
Oh,
Yes.
I like what you said, and I want to add this. I think this is discussion for our strategic planning.
Absolutely.
I don't want to tell them how to do HR. I want to tell them what we want
To accomplish
happen.
with, yes.
and then let them give us their plan for it. I think that if we start telling Tom and Jody and Jen how to do HR, they ought to just quit.
Well, I think what we've had today is suggestions as to
Yeah.
the direction the board might like to go.
Yeah.
I like that we do need to invest in employees. I've always found,
There's
wherever
one-
I've worked, human resources was the place to go for employee assistance programs
Right.
and employee wellness
I
and
agree with all
things.
that, but one thing you said I really liked, that I know, if you guys know me, I'm a gentle person. My calling is to heal people. That's what, since I've been 5 years old, that's all I ever wanted to do. So I've been told that the employees think I'm a mean guy. I know this may be hard to believe, but I used to be, have you ever heard of Olympic weightlifting? That's the overhead lifts. That's the ones they do in the Olympics. I was state and national champion in that.
Is that the clean and jerk thing?
That is. And
Do you have any pictures?
Do you have any of those outfits?
I've got, I'll bring you, I won third in Mr. Grand Traverse when I was 38.
I'd like to see him too.
Yeah. I
Okay.
used to be able to lift over my head, ground overhead, 275
And your
pounds.
point.
And your point is,
Yeah, my point is.
okay, let's get to your point. It's interesting, but we'll go to the point.
Probably do
point
a
is
calendar
this.
next year.
That I was proud of what I did, because I met standards that were verifiable, and I had to go through the hard training to get there. That's one of the ways, and maybe the most important way, that you help your employees, is that you give them the standards you want them to meet, you give them the education and encouragement to get there. They don't get an attendance award, or they don't get a participation award. They get it, they win state champion because they are state champion, and we have ways to prove it. In this county, we don't have, I don't know anyway, any standards we have for any departments that has measurement, management, standards, accountability.
Or awards for achieving and
awards for that.
exceeding
So I want all
those.
that to
Yes.
happen, because I want them to feel great.
Absolutely.
I want them to be
We
champions.
tried to put those in the contracts and the unions turned them down, so.
Well, maybe we can inspire but not require. I don't know,
Okay.
but I
I
think
like that.
I think that our heart's in the same place. And we can, and if we get efficient and effective, we can save a little money too. So that's the way I feel. I think this issue is really an issue we need to hammer out in our
Okay? And we will.
strategic.
And we will, because that's our job, is to give the direction. Absolutely. Anybody else have any comments or any more questions? Does anyone in the public have anything to say about our update or the way we're going, the direction?
My guess is we should schedule a second session for your strategic planning session. That 4.5 hours isn't going to get it done.
We will talk about that yes, this is the first step, and then we'll move on to the next step. We're going to just do that first step and see how that goes, and we will decide how to proceed from that time. Okay? Anybody else? Moving on. No new business. We move on to second public comment. Anybody? Mr. Scheck, step right up.
Excuse me. Matthew Scheck, AKA Joe Taxpayer, 9th Street, Traverse City. I wasn't being facetious there. I said that only because I think at the close of last meeting that you guys had, you talked about revolving department reports, and I was thinking, wow, you know, one of the biggest problem that Grand Traverse County has is that there's so much red ink, and I think everybody is concerned about that. Certainly, employee group should be. I was an employee at one time, a number of different jobs, but my main concern was that the company did good, because I know my head would be on a chopping block, or a number of us would be if things got really bad. So, reason I wanted to bring this up here was referencing the revolving department reports. I thought it would be a pretty good idea, and I don't know how valid you guys can do this, especially the financial department, but I was thinking of a department or a debt comparison analysis in a financial report. In other words, you start out your meetings, like say on a quarterly basis, you know, similar to what I think it was suggested by Commissioner Follett. Giving a report like, we started the year with this amount of red ink, and now we are at this position. You know, we've made headway. We've reduced the red ink by this much. And of course, if it went the other way, I know people don't like to go the other way, but it would tell the taxpayers, this gives us a report card on how you guys are doing, how you're handling the red ink, the debt. Remember, I gave my name as Joe Taxpayer. Basically, we're the employers, because we're paying the bill. And I know you guys handle that, and I know that a lot of pressure gets put on you rather than us. I probably don't see many other people here that are going to talk about being a taxpayer point of view, but I just thought I would reference that. Maybe at a future meeting, I know I did this 2 years ago, I referenced Commissioner Richard Rothschild from Carroll County, Maryland, about some of his suggestions about being a commissioner and what he tells people, some good, strong words of advice, and maybe next time I could get into that, I'd be running over in my minutes here. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Tuck.
Joanne Tuck, 1901 West Curry Drive, Traverse City, Michigan. I first want to put a plug in for our Commission on Aging staff who did not want to come up and toot their own horn, but I'll toot it. They have done a wonderful job, to the point where I think we forgot that we had even a client will several $1,000s because of the great care he got. So I don't know too many businesses that can say that. Secondly, I'm hoping that the strategic planning is open, because I have a lot to say about HR. I really do hope you push for an HR director. We really need one. We've been without one too long. There's too many issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stocking.
Ernie encouraged me to get up here and say something. Actually, Carol Stocking, the 86th District Court Administrator. The reason I am here is I really want to talk to Dr. Lathrop and Commissioner Lathrop in particular. I've heard you say a couple of times about departments, or I think you've used the word department, so about not having measurements or goals, objectives, and whatnot. We're a court. I can't speak for the Health Department or the Sheriff's Department or Commission on Aging, but I will tell you, we do have measurements, and we can share those with you. We have caseload timeliness reports that we have to submit to the State Court Administrator's Office on a regular basis, because each type of case has to be disposed of in a timely fashion, and when they go over those time guidelines, we have to report each of those cases to the state and for all intents and purposes, explain why it has not met the time guideline. Same with collections. We can show you not only how much money we collect, but we can show you how many dollars in outstanding receivables we have by year, by case, by fee code. It's really extensive. And we have many other measurements that we have that we report regularly to the State Court Administrator's Office. So I just want to say I take exception that no court, you didn't say court, but no department has those measurements. We do. I don't know how to share those with you. Nobody has asked me for them, but they certainly exist. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, oh, yes, ma'am. Step up.
I'm Nancy Ackes. I actually live in Kalkaska County.
Your microphone moves down if you want to.
Oh, thank you. And I'm not a public speaker.
Okay.
I did talk to Jen today, and Jen Don, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm really sad." And that really opened up a lot of conversation. And I've been an employee of Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging for 12 years. I'm very proud of that. I thank you for taking time to go through this, because I just am devastated to even think that we would go for another company to run us. And we've had the support of Grand Traverse County people for 41 years. And Commission on Aging is important, and it does well. You've heard the reports. Yes, we do, Dr. Lathrop, get our employees stirred up with our workers, because we're there. They love us and we love them. And maybe we say the wrong things because we are concerned. We love these people. I have personally 250 to 280 people that I do their toenails. And no one is like, why do you do this? You know, because I have their attention, they have mine. And they talk to me. And I can tell you a gazillion stories about why we should not go to Comfort Keepers, okay? And I'm glad that they're not here, because I would never hurt their feelings for any reason or shape or form. But we do a good job, and I think we can continue on our own to do a good job. I think we can find someone to do the HIPAA for us. We have money. We have been told we have money. Why are we going to give some of it back? Why can't we use it? Why can't we increase our own IT ourselves? I understand we're in the dark ages, but we have done a fantastic job for all these years. 41 years Commission on Aging has been here. Please don't just take that and give it to someone else. Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to us. And I personally would talk to any one of you on the side, and I know all of us girls would. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Now's your chance. Okay, thank you very much, everyone that got up to speak. I know it's not an easy thing to do. So I commend you all for standing up and speaking. Thank you. We need to hear from people. We really do. So we'll move on to commissioner reports. Anything? Anybody have anything exciting to report? Or Bob?
I was at the signing when the governor signed our new Veterans Home Authority bill. Some of the legislation I helped work on in the committee. So we are now going to move from a board of managers over the veterans facilities to an authority, and this gives them ability to build new state veterans homes. So the first two will be rebuilding Grand Rapids and then one in Detroit. And then hopefully in some time, it'll take some time, but 6 new homes, so.
Okay.
Good time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Dan?
Yeah, as you know, we did have the act of Congress that the President signed into law that we're the VA clinic, the existing one and the new one, and all those in perpetuity will be named after Colonel Demas Craw, our Medal of Honor recipient, the only one in Grand Traverse County. And the day that we're going to honor him is going to be August 26th, and we thank God for the Coast Guard. That's going to be our venue where we have the ceremony.
Nice.
And we're hoping to have a flyover, and his son is still alive and has the medal. He's going to be bringing that medal.
Nice.
And Bob and I and 5 or 6 others, including representatives from the tribes, we're putting together this honoring of this wonderful man that gave his life for our country. We're hoping to have other living Medal of Honor winners there, or recipients there as well. It's going to be quite a celebration, not just of this man, but of all the people that have defended our country. For every person that's a Medal of Honor, there's probably 10,000 that should be. And anyway, it's going to be August 26th, and the main venue is going to be at the Coast Guard station. So I wanted to announce that.
Thank you. And Cheryl?
Sonny and I were at the meeting of the newly configured Economic Development Corporation, and very exciting. Tom was there as well, and a lot of energy in that room. A lot of, as Tom said, young people. There were young people there, and of course they always have lots of energy and enthusiasm, and I think we walked out of there feeling pretty excited about what that group can do.
They're the future.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I had one other.
Yes.
I've followed Commissioner Lathrop as he's gone through this journey to get this Medal of Honor person honored as he should be. And I think it's just marvelous what you did in giving of your time and effort. And I know that you had stumbling blocks. You didn't let that stop you. Your persistence. Maybe it's the weightlifting. I don't know. But whatever it was, that ceremony on the 26th of August would not have happened if it hadn't been for you. So good for you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you staying.
Anybody else?
I'm going to bring my physique picture in next meeting.
Thank you for warning us. Any notices? I have one thing that I actually forgot to mention. I don't know if I need to mention it within the board rules. We had talked about the receive and file section of the consent calendar. Bonnie and the clerk's office had an idea, because I think our concern, talk to me. There was a concern that it's very labor intensive. It takes a lot of time to get it in the packet, and we were concerned that if it wasn't someplace where we could get to all of it, that we wouldn't be kind of prompted to look at all of it. So if Bonnie could give her idea on that.
Well,
I'm
actually,
putting you on the
Jen and I
spot.
had talked about it, and Sarah in my office had an idea of attaching it out on the web with the packet, and, the minutes and all that go out on the website. So we could upload everything out there with the packet electronically for access, the whole amount.
You're talking about all this stuff?
Yep.
That you don't want to give it to us? Is that
No,
what you're saying?
they want to give it to us, but I think that they want to, instead of in every separate packet, if they could once a month put it in one spot and send us the link to get it and look at it, that was their idea, and I told them that I would bring it up and see what anybody thought about that. Am I correct in that's
So if we want it,
describing?
then we would download it ourselves, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I'd just assume.
You don't,
not
you
do
want the
that.
hard copies,
Okay.
though.
Well, yeah, because
No.
otherwise, how
Yeah.
do I know to ask you questions? I mean, I have
Exactly,
to
and
go
that's-
through
yeah.
everything online,
And that's why I wanted to bring
find
it.
online cumbersome.
And they
Okay.
had talked about, maybe talking about it at your strategic planning, on how to, I don't know, Jen had brought it up to me, maybe doing it at a strategic planning, talking about receive and file. But,
I just wanted to see how people felt
Well,
about
some
that. If you
people-
like it this way
If others
is,
don't want it, then don't print it, but I've specifically asked for it. You can keep my computer and just give me this. I'll trade you. I don't want the computer.
just wanted to know general feeling about, would it be easier to get one link at the end of the month with all of the things that we've got for receive and file so you can look at them all? Or is it preferable to get them every meeting, whatever we've gotten up to then?
I think we can just talk about it some more in another meeting. but- I mean,
Possibly.
I'm happy with what we're getting now.
Possibly
Okay.
we deal with receive and file items once a month instead of twice a month, and just deal with action items at our meeting every other week.
Would that be
well,
better?
administration actually makes the agenda packet,
Oh, okay.
so it's up
Oh, yeah.
to them to figure out, I mean, I think that it's probably a good idea to do it once a month, maybe, but I don't know.
We
We can talk about it a little further.
We do occasionally pull items from the receive and file.
That's true, we do.
Normally, it's because it's a board resolution from such and such a county in regard to a specific issue, and we want to weigh in on that issue. So we do pull those occasionally, but I don't know that it's something we have to do every other week. I think we could deal with receive and file once a month, and just deal with the action items every 2 weeks.
If that would help? Would that, okay.
It'll save time.
Okay.
Anything to streamline the process is helpful.
Yeah, that's all they were looking for, but we'll still get it, but maybe, okay. Fair enough. I just wanted to see what people thought about that. Okay. Any other notices or any other comments at all? Okay. Do we need a closed session? We do not. Okay. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good evening.